The fact is that the last 8 years with George Bush has been something of a constitutional Chernobyl. Every safety feature in our system seemed to fail. We had a complete meltdown. It's not supposed to happen. I'm a huge, I'm basically a Madisonian scholar, because I think that sort of James Madison is sort of the Elvis of the Constitution. But I truly believed that this was a system that had been designed correctly. The framers designed the system to be effectively idiot-proof, and God knows we put that to a test. But the problem is that I think he expected only a couple idiots at most. Instead, we had a great number. And the system failed. And that's something that we've got to deal with. It's not that the system failed in a fatal sense. I've got great optimism of the ability of this country and this Constitution to repair itself in meaningful ways. But it did fail. Things that happened in the last 8 years weren't supposed to happen. You know, if President Bush is guilty of the crimes of malfeasance, and I believe he is guilty of true crimes, not rhetorical crimes, and I've testified in Congress that I believe that President Bush has committed impeachable offenses. But if he has committed the crimes of malfeasance, then Congress, and specifically the Democrats, have committed the crimes of nonfeasance. Teddy Roosevelt once said that to be a great president, you need a great war. And he said that if Abraham Lincoln didn't have a war, no one would know his name. And a lot of presidents believe that. I think this president believed that. See, there is a flaw in our Constitution, and that is our Constitution has a weird system with regard to war. Only Congress can declare a war, but effectively only the president can end it. So it's a very difficult document to deal with. Once you declare war, once you unleash the dogs of war, it's the president and the president alone that can largely call them back. And so the president gave us the enemy combatant policy, where he asserted the ability to strip citizens, including actual citizens, of their constitutional rights, prevent them to have access to courts and due counsel, and to hold them indefinitely, people like Jose Padilla, one of the great crimes of my generation. He engaged in illegal surveillance, and not only that, he went before Congress. One of the greatest sort of out-of-body experiences I've ever had as a constitutional expert was when the President of the United States went to the State of the Union and said that he had ordered illegal surveillance over 30 times, and he told the people who made it a crime that he intends to keep on doing it, and they gave him a standing ovation. We've seen contempt of Congress, where he's declared executive privilege that cannot possibly be sustained, and he's decided just to race out the calendar. We've seen destruction of evidence, of documents being demanded by courts. We've seen the abuse of the state secrets privilege. All these things should follow a pattern, or should form a pattern in your mind. They're all problems with the separation of powers. This president is the most uncomfortable chief executive in the history of this country in his constitutional skin. He took an oath to a constitution that said he had to share power and immediately refused to do so. They've argued for a very long time for an almost monarchical presidency. And even Dick Cheney admitted a year ago that they saw 9/11 as an ability to achieve what was a general purpose to expand the power of the presidency. So where did the failure come? The failure came in Congress. The Democrats have largely protected this president from serious repercussions. That does not just include impeachment. If you looked at the Mukasey vote, it was Democrats that saved Mukasey's nomination when he was forced, or was going to be forced, to answer the question on torture. And you had an attorney general who, frankly, in my view, testified dishonestly and said he didn't know what waterboarding was, which is just bloody ridiculous. And then when he was defined for him, he just simply refused to answer. That final moment that we had been waiting for to address torture was taken away from us because Senator Schumer and Senator Feinstein switched sides and approved Mukasey, and he's proven to be a nightmare. But Congress did worse. When the Supreme Court struck down military commissions, Congress stepped in to preserve them. When it was disclosed that surveillance was done illegally, Congress stepped in to try to protect the president by making it post hoc legal. Why, with clear impeachment questions, haven't the Democrats moved forward with impeachment, making any sizable instead of just rhetorical motions? Because to impeach this president would raise into question clear crimes like surveillance and torture that Democrats were aware of and said nothing.